Anyway, this is day 11 of the hopefully final phase of the many years war between Israel and the Iranian dictatorship, headquartered out of Tehran. And interesting facts, while Iran, the dictatorship, has shot well over 1,000 projectiles and complaint cylinders at Israel in the last 11 days, including more than 1,100 drones, many hundreds of missiles at Israel. So far, there's been an unfortunate number of death and injury and damage in Israel, totaling so far, I believe, 24 casualties who have been confirmed dead by these missiles, and hundreds and hundreds of injured. Maybe it's already close to 1,000 injured, but certainly hundreds of people injured in the last 11 days. And fortunately, most people in Israel have been safeguarded by the fact that they have bomb shelters in in many places. About half the homes, a little bit less than half the homes, there's 1.3 million, 1.4 million homes have bomb shelters, and 1.6 million don't. But of the 1.6 million that don't, most of them are within some distance for a relatively safe space, if not an actual public bomb shelter or a bomb shelter in their building, like a shared one. But many people shelter in like stairwells, which are not ideal, but it's better apparently than just staying in an apartment, depending on the stairwell and depending on the apartment or the house. Nevertheless, there's a high risk of death or injury when you're not in a protected space. And yes, there's been one incident where people in a safe room did in fact die in this war so far, in this phase of this war, because they took a direct hit from a 500 kilogram at a half metric ton ballistic missile that went literally into the wall of their shielded, safe room bomb shelter. Well, the bomb shelters are designed to resist blasts, meaning if the bomb lands next to the safe room, right, within some meters of it or whatever, then the walls should resist completely caving in, and the room should not, kill the people inside. But if it takes a direct hit, depending on the strength of the bomb shelter, it may not resist that, because statistically, the odds of getting actually a direct hit from a missile onto the actual bomb shelter are pretty low. Usually, they're designed to resist against blasts from shrapnel and pieces of the bomb hitting the bomb shelter, but not necessarily a direct hit coming in with full thrust rocket power into the bomb shelter. So there has been one case where people in such a room did in fact die because they got literally hit directly by a ballistic missile. But in all other cases, people who were in bomb shelters survived, even in cases where there were minor injuries. But in most cases, people didn't even get any injuries. In fact, the one room where people did die, they were in a bomb shelter. The people literally above them and below them, and the bomb shelters above them and below them, did not get injured, let alone die. And the people who were not in bomb shelters in that same building did die on separate floors even. The people who were, in adjacent floors and adjacent rooms, who for some reason were not in bomb shelters, there were at least two people in that building that did die in that incident I'm talking about, which goes to show why it's important to stay in a bomb shelter during the sirens, during the alerts. Some people, of course, are fatalists and they don't want to go to bomb shelters. They just say, "Oh, when it's my time, it's my time." Personally, I'm of the opinion that, hey, you only get one life. Live it. And don't just be a fatalist and just, don't just not go to a shelter. It's frankly not the wisest or most intelligent thing you can do statistically. But you can't change everybody's mind, certainly not grown-ups. Right? People are free to make their own decisions. But most Israelis, thankfully, do take heed of those warnings and do go to the bomb shelters, and that's why they're staying safe, even when there are these awful attacks that do damage. Now, of the 1,100 drones that have been shot by Iran into Israel in the last 11 days, only one has actually, hit a target in Israel. The others were all shot down or didn't make it to Israel at all. They just crash landed over Jordan or Iraq somewhere. And the one that did hit a target hit a home that fortunately was empty at the time because the people living there were somewhere else. I believe they were in a bomb shelter outside of their home. And it blew a hole basically in an external wall and caused some, damage to the apartment. But it didn't destroy the building. I don't think it destroyed the whole apartment, but it certainly wrecked, whatever room it hit, obviously, because it's a pretty big explosion, even in a little drone. And so thankfully, nobody got killed by that. But it's amazing that only one of the 1,100 drones has actually managed to hit anything so far. Hopefully, there won't be any more that hit anything. But those are pretty amazing statistics, just as it is. Now, of course, there is obviously the ongoing back and forth of Israeli attacks by Air Force and other means in Tehran and in Iran, getting rid of remaining military to their nuclear program. And Israel is, even though our technical goals do not include regime change necessarily, they pretty much do. Let's be honest about it. While the United States is willing to negotiate a settlement with Iran, Israel is sick and tired of this. And after 46 years of dealing with this crap in our backyard, we really don't want to see this regime last any longer than it absolutely has to. And we would be delighted if the people of Iran would get up and overthrow their own government, but that really is up to them. At the very least, Israel wants to make sure that Iran can never be a nuclear threat to Israel again. And that includes getting rid of all of the possible targets that are relevant to that exercise. And yes, of course, if they choose to stay with their government and not overthrow them or not replace them in some way, right, and not change their ideology bent on destroying Israel, then Israel is just going to have to keep doing this every so often, right? This or other means, like they've done in the past. It's awful. More so, but that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a nation that wants to spread terror and their Shia Islamist extremist way of living to the, and that is not acceptable to Israelis and to people who love freedom, frankly, freedom and equal rights. Anyway, I was going to talk to you guys about what happens after the bomb blasts, but maybe that's too much for this video. And maybe I'll go a little bit more in a separate video from personal experience. Anyway, things I can maybe tell you. Anyway, stay safe. Peace. Shalom.